Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Muhyiddin Mirza. Today we are going to take you around and talk about the subject of gardening. Gardening in your backyard, gardening in your front yard. Primarily gardening is a hobby as well, but beyond hobby, it's just amazing how much you could produce, the vegetable, the flowers. And in this backyard, we're going to introduce you to a variety of crops as well. You will see different type of cherries which could be grown in climate we are talking about, especially in the colder climate. Then we are going to introduce you to different people as well who is involved with this gardening. This is a backyard of the family of Rashad Houghton and his family. So we are going to take you around to show you what can be achieved. And then beyond that, we are going to show you when a passion is involved in gardening, then grafting of different apples, different varieties could also be there. So it's a very, very good hobby as well. So hopefully some of the techniques which will show you on grafting and how to grow as well. As a horticulturist, I find it very fascinating that how to maintain the health of your backyard, health of your gardening, health of your grass as well. So a lot of things we're going to cover in this, and hopefully you will enjoy what we're going to show you. What you see here in the background is a tree, which is a pear tree. This is an edible pear tree. What you see here is this will be ripe in another 3-4 weeks time. And look at the fruit which is set on this one. So this is the fruit which you could eat fresh as well. This you could make jams and jelly as well out of that. This is a very historical tree. So it's not that this is a pear tree. This has a lot of history behind it. Right now you will see there are ribbons here. This is also tree grafting, has been grafted on this one. Apples have been grafted, pear has been grafted this one. And this backyard belongs to a family, Rashad Houghton, which is our MD brother from Mauritius. They moved here in this tree was planted in 1987, let me say this, where he loves the gardening. I'd like to bring in Rashad Houghton and his son Samir, who are really working as a tag team to do the grafting and introduce to the people. Rashad, can I welcome you here, and Samir as well? Rashad, how are you today?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm well.
First, tell me about this tree that in our background, that is a pear tree, I know. But you picked this up on 31st of July, 1987 in a tornado. Am I right?
Exactly. I was the first one when the tornado happened. I was just rescuing. I was the first one to arrive on the scene. And it was a tragedy in Edmonton. And then on my way return, as I am coming back, I see this twig lying down there into the ditch. I just grabbed it, only Allah knows. I just took it with me.
Right.
And then I just had it into my car. And the next day I was working at a greenhouse, at the Coolman greenhouse.
Right,
And
right.
I went down there and I just planted it into the dugout. And regularly I was keeping an eye on it. I had intention there that I would be building a house somewhere. So something was telling me to just pick it up as a remembrance.
So you rooted it and planted it here in 1987.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
was planted there already. It was planted there already. And then when I moved over here in 1990, I think we believed the lot. We bought the lot sometimes in April. And then that was the first thing. As soon as I got my lot, I just took the tree from right there. And this is the first tree I planted. And it was just facing my living room. It has got lots of historic importance to me.
Okay. Samir, you were not born then, was it, in 1987?
No, I was born in 1996.
So you love horticulture as well and grafting as well and all those. When did you come into this world?
Well, one day Dad was out in the yard and I was sitting there watching TV, and my dad comes inside the house. He's like, "Samir, come out here and help me."
Right.
And I was looking at my dad. It's like, "Okay, what do you need help with?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to graft some apple trees."
Okay, okay.
So we go outside and he's showing me. He's cutting the branches. And I was thinking, what is he doing? And I asked him, I was like, "Dad, what are you doing to the tree?"
Right.
And he says, like, "I'm grafting different apples onto this tree."
Right.
And I was fascinated because I didn't know you could do that at
Right,
first.
right.
I was very young and impressionable, and I kind of picked it up from him as we went along.
Later you are going to show us how to grafting as well. So basically, Rishad, tell us on this tree, all these ribbons are showing what?
Yeah, these are. I've got 27 grafts. It just happened that way. I put 27 graft because there was 27 lives lost on that day.
So there's quite a bit of emotional significance as well, that when the tornado hit on 31st of July 1987, you thought to commemorate this tree and then graft it as well.
Exactly. So I came down there, and and over the years I started grafting over here. And if you count over here, there's exactly 27 graft added to these trees. All these white ribbons, there's a total of 27 graft, and some of them are apple. And it's been grafted over the years, and it's all facing down east. Because
Why facing east?
well, this is a good question. I think we always pray towards the east, and then also
The tornado came from east.
the tornado came from east, and so there's quite a bit of significance. And
So how do you maintain this tree? I noticed that they get watered as well. You have a big. This is a very nice technique you have got there to watering. What do you do? Give them fertilizer as well? Totally organic.
yeah, this is basically what we want to do. Is we just want to keep it organic, and this is an African way I was taught back home, because we used to have streams running and things like that. And I mean, in Mauritius, it's very, very dry. So we used to get the water from the wells, and the only way you can contain it is just by having a small dugout, and then you put your manure there, and as you pour constantly, once you start pouring the manure down there, what happens then it just dissolves and it gets all the nutrients.
So basically, the thought is that you could grow this tree and other crops we're going to show without any extra fertilizer, just basically maintain the good health of the plant.
Yeah, definitely, because there's no fertilizer. I believe in organic, and everything over here is just organic over here in origin. And
Well, we're going to talk about grafting a little bit more. In the background, you will also see another apple tree, which has been grafted by Richard as well. So we're going to continue with the tour as well. What you're seeing here is an apple tree. Originally, this apple tree was called crab apple, which is not really edible. People make jams and jelly out of it. But what Richard did it here, and his son, his team, has grafted this tree with 20 different types of fruit on them, 20 different types of apple. Some are early apple, so they ripen in beginning of September. Some are late apple, so their shelf life also varies. You could keep them pretty good in a cold place. Actually, what Rishad has done is he has kept those apple as long as 4 or 5 months, just fresh in his garage. So the technique is called grafting. Grafting simply means that you take a branch of the fruit you like and then put it on these trees by cutting the wood. There's a proper procedure for that. We will demonstrate to you exactly what grafting involves. But the important thing to understand here is that it can be done. Apple on apples, and of course you saw apples on pear as well. We could show you a graft of pear on apples as well. So it has to be compatible. You can't graft a mango, for example, on the apples. So similar thing has to be done. So 20 different varieties are there, and we'll show you different color fruit later as well. What we are showing you here is a branch of the apple tree, and there are 3 grafts on this one. You notice here is apple graft right here. This is where the original grafting was done. We'll give you a demonstration later. But look how fascinating. Look at these type of leaves. This is a pear leaf. So a pear branch is not fruiting yet. So a pear branch has been grafted on this apple as one. And here is the third graft on the same branch. Whenever grafting is done, you will see a thick stem like here. Originally, this branch was taken and then inserted into this tree. So all the food and nutrition is coming from this branch here, and then the grafted branch retain its identity, is genetic as well. That's why the fruit is different on this one. Originally, this is a crab apple, very small fruited one, which you have seen earlier. But this is a beautiful example of what can be done during grafting. So instead of planting 40 different trees, you could have 40 different varieties on one apple tree and enjoy its fruit and share with the neighbors and eat it as well. We are going to show you how to graft an apple tree. And of course, Rishad and his son Samira is going to join me to actually demonstrate to you so that when you see this program, you should be able to graft a tree. As I mentioned, that grafting involves taking a branch of the compatible tree, what you like, in this case, an apple variety, and then put it on other tree, which is the mother tree, we call it. Welcome again, Rishad. And can you demonstrate what you're going to do? Well, what is this you have got? This is a branch of an apple tree, and you selected a thickness, okay. And then there are 3 eyes here, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Good. So you're going to cut it up, all right. So what do you call it? Scion?
Yes,
Yes, we call this a scion.
Scion, S-C-I-O-N. So that is the branch which you're going to put on the tree. And what do you call the tree? Is it called the mother stalk or root stalk, whatever?
This is the rootstock.
Okay.
The one that we put onto the tree.
Okay.
This is the scion, and the one that the twig is being put on
Okay.
is the rootstock.
All right. So what you did, you cut that off. All right. So just show us what you're doing. So that's the scion.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're going to.
We're going to have to make sure that when you cut the scion, where you want the cut and where you want to put it on the rootstock, they have to be the same thickness,
Okay,
or
okay.
else the graft will not take.
So what you're showing here is the same thickness. Okay.
Yes.
This is the scion to be grafted on this one.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
We'll
So you're
just-
going to cut it up now.
Yes.
Okay.
Just cut that up.
Perfect.
And then you go half inch in the center.
So what you see here now is the branch which has been cut up, and Rishad is going to smooth it up a little bit now.
Yes. So you want to make sure it's even over here, and it has to be. You can see right on the center over here. So what you do, you get a very sharp knife,
Yeah.
and always wear please gloves.
That's important.
Very important because of
I've
injury.
seen your head damaged.
Exactly. And what you do is you don't want to make a quick slice, so you center it, and what you do is just what you're doing is you just take the knife into the center, as you see,
Okay.
and then you basically rock it.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So
All right.
you're not damaging the tissue at the same time, and yeah, you can go, and then you can, instead of straight pressure, and then you can tell now you don't want to go. Right now we are ready, say about 2 inches or so.
Okay.
So this is open right now.
So very sharp knife and do it rocking motion.
Yeah, in a rocking motion is just better, and then you pull it nicely. So now this is
Just hold on. Have you ever hurt your hand as well?
Yes, I have. I've cut myself one accident.
One accident. Yeah. Just have to be careful, I guess, when you do this. All
Safety
right.
is the number one priority.
so 1, 2, 3. Some we go into where the edge is over here. No, yeah, right there. Yeah. So our scion is ready. So there's 1, 2, 3 eyes. The idea of 3 eyes is just in case if one dies, I mean, there's an opportunity of the other 2 to come up.
What do you mean by eyes? These are for the future growth then?
Exactly. That's where the leaves are going to come down, and these are future branches that going to stem from over here.
Is there a certain time of the year when when these eyes are ready? Early spring or late fall? Or?
The best time is to do it into early spring,
Okay.
because when it's dormant.
Okay.
But then again, you have to make sure that when you're doing this grafting, that the sap is flowing.
The sap mean the water inside the plus it should be active.
Inside.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now, so we just hold down there. So there's a 2 inches cut over here, and approximately what we do is we just expose this on one side, and until we see the vein over here. So now we do exactly the same on the other side, and it has to be a straight motion. You can't rock it because you don't want to damage the tissue. So there you are.
Okay.
And then you can go until you see the vein, and then you just line it up nicely, because there's always some edges. You smooth it up, and then over here.
So it's like a sharp wedge.
Exactly.
Okay.
This
okay.
is called the wedge grafting.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
almost like a wedge over here.
Right.
And now what we do is we just, in order to insert it, what we do is we just put a little bit of a
dent or
Yeah, a
you just
dent.
cut it. Okay.
So
okay.
it's now it almost looks like You can tell over here, it's almost
Okay,
like
okay.
it's make it easier for
Right.
you to slide it in.
Okay, okay.
So what we do is like we have different equipment over here. Like I mean, this is one of the tool we use. So we just open it up. We just open it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a knife in this case, so where it was cut. So I go back again. It's best to so we just put a little bit of a pressure over here, and you see the stock is open now. So we take the scion and we just insert it. So what we're doing is it's in now. You can see it's in. So now what we have to do is we just push slowly until it's completely aligned. There you are, it's right in there.
Okay.
So it's in perfect alignment, and if it's out of alignment, you play with it until it just goes back. So right now, as you see, it's just basically aligned.
Okay.
Or sometimes if you're not very comfortable, you can pull it out again and just try a second one. So, and there it is.
Okay.
It's
so-
right in there.
Right, right.
So now what we do is, it's in there. So we take the electrical tape over here and we start.
So
from
that's a simple tape, electrical tape.
yeah, this is an electrical tape, but I mean, this is just an example. And as we pull over here, we keep on going, and we pull towards us, just so that it will bind together.
Right.
And the idea is to keep the moisture right inside down there, and when you come to the very end, you just go around to make sure that it's airtight, so that no air would go down there, and you keep going all the way again at the very end. And
So really, you want to make sure it's a watertight.
exactly. And now you can see the graph is in now. If I pull it, it won't even come.
Okay.
And then you have to remember the last piece of the tape goes at the bottom, so that because eventually you have to take this graph out. So it's best to leave it like that, so that as soon as the graph takes, then you can peel it out easily. But there's different ways. We prefer something which is not very, very hard. So here's your complete graph.
All right. Thank you, Rishad, very much. So what you see here is a grafted apple branch. So you got what we call scion and then the rootstock, and now it's ready. How much time it will take to until you see it is grafted?
From my experience, sometimes it's if you done at the right time in about 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes you can see result in 1 week, or sometimes it's delayed. It's all depending on the weather.
Thank you very much, Rishad and Samir. I appreciate that. I'd like to welcome you here. You are here for our open house on the gardening as well. What you saw here are apples and pear. So what did you feel like? What does it remind you any memories of back home or your own garden?
Well, actually, it does for myself. I was sharing with my wife when we read the article that way back when I was about his son's age, I was experimenting with grafting myself,
Okay.
and I was unsuccessful. So, so it's very interesting to see these trees and to see how many different grafts he has made on each one. It's just amazing, and to see all of the fruit there too.
Yeah. And you live in Edmonton and have your own backyard apples as well?
We live in Edmonton. Yes, we have no apples.
But after this one, I'm sure you're going to plant it.
Well, we will think about it. We see so many yards around Edmonton, which is quite sad in our opinion, because so many people have these trees that are full of apples, and all the apples are laying on the ground. They're not being picked, they're not being used. So it's neat to see these apples and to hear how they're being used and shared and that type of thing.
How did you like that tornado tree, that pear tree? That's quite a bit significance. It reminds quite a few things what happened on 31st of July, 1987.
Yes, yes. We have memories. We didn't live in Edmonton at the time. We lived in Spruce Grove. And I can remember seeing those green clouds floating around, and then to hear about the tornado hitting, it was quite amazing, yeah.
I think Rishad has done a tremendous job on picking up that twig and then rooting it properly and then planting it.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Well, this was a gardening tour you got here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We showed you a lot of apples and pears as well. the grafting could be done on the same tree. You saw 20 different varieties which were on one apple tree, and then the demonstration of grafting was quite unique. If you follow it closely, I think really you could perform a grafting on your trees. Beside that, there were a lot of vegetables as well, planting some herb, especially the mint is of great value, and there's no limit what you could do in the country you live in. Medicinal plant, herbs, and of course different vegetable as well. Thank you very much. Mohiuddin Mirza, your host for this program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.